Hi guys, my name's Peggy and I am growing a cut flower garden here on my allotment in Kanagawa Prefecture, Japan, which is just south of Tokyo in USDA Zone 9B. Thanks for checking out my channel. So we are now in the first week of March, which in our area means that we are finally past our last frost date, and everybody is getting their gardens ready for new planting, and it's so strange. I've never seen the allotment look this bare. Let me give you a twizzle. I've just never seen the allotment garden look this empty. Everyone's starting to prepare and get their gardens ready for the winter. No, for the spring. And I am really excited that I can finally get all of my autumn sown seeds into the ground. So, look at these! Sure day to go in the garden, guys. I have here my Snapdragon. I have Calendula, I have stalk, and I'm really upset one of these stalk has broken off. It broke off a couple of days ago. It was a really windy day. I was trying to harden these off and it just didn't like the wind and snapped. Now if this had been one of my Snapdragon or my Calendula, that wouldn't have been an issue. They are cut and come again, so I actually pinch those out when they get a bit bigger. I already pinched out my Snapdragon, and they put out more flowers when you do that. These are one and done, which means if that growing tip breaks, you've got no flower. So it's sad. It still looks so healthy, but I'm not going to get a flower off of that one. So one less stalk. Anyhow, these are going in today as well. I also have at the back there some of my cornflower, my gypsophilia, and more Snapdragon. A lot of Snapdragon going in, but I'll talk about that later on. But first, I'm squishing those ones. But first, I need to get the garden cleaned up a bit. So if you look behind me, it's looking a bit weedy and not great. So I'm going to rake off the big sticks that are in there. I left a lot of my roots in the ground last year, a lot of my sunflower roots and stuff like that. So I'm just going to rake off all the bigger chunks because they take too long to break down. I'm going to weed it out, I'm going to put a layer of compost over the top of it, and I'm going to aerate it a little so that the soil is nice and fluffy. I do not turn my soil, I do no dig, so I'm not going to actually turn over my soil. I'm just going to hack into it a little bit to try and get some air and break up any compaction that's happened over the winter, because I have been walking over the garden, which I shouldn't be doing. So I am going to do that first before I put any of this in the ground. Cleanup time. Because I do no dig, I don't dig out my weeds either. I use my little reaper tool and I just cut the heads off of my weeds. I do that regularly. It's a really small garden, it's only 4 by 5 meters. I do that regularly and have found that it doesn't take any time at all to do. And it means I'm not digging up my soil and reseeding those weeds over again. So just off with their heads. This top half of the garden already has compost that I put on a couple of weeks ago, but then I ran out. So I've gone and bought some more, and I'm just going to go ahead and put that on the bottom half of the garden. Okay, weeded, decompacted, decompressed, and compost on. So now I need to look at my plan and just figure out where I am going to put everything. Now, this plan was if I had a bare garden, and obviously you can see I do not have a bare garden. I've got some stuff that's kind of stuck around from last year. I've got all of my poppy here, which I honestly don't know if it's going to do anything. So this is a poppy I planted last year and it didn't do anything. It got in too late and it got too hot, but then it didn't die. So I left it in. This pole is very annoying, sorry. It didn't die, so I just left it in and it has bushed up and greened up, and it's definitely getting bigger. It is really, really dense though, and I tried to thin it out a little and it didn't like it. The area that I tried to thin out a little, just everything died, so it now has a big hole in the middle here. So I'm just like, okay, I'm not going to touch it, and I'm going to see if anything happens. Now, because this is a poppy, it should come on quite early in the season, so if it hasn't, then I can take it out and I'll still get stuff in here for summer. But it's just a wee experiment to see if anything's actually going to come. But this is in the middle of where I was planning on putting my stock, which is what I'm putting in today. So I'm going to have to start my stock at the end of the row and work my way this way, because I have a second sowing of stock that I still have on at home, and I'm hoping that by the time that is ready to go in the garden, this will have flowered, or it won't, and I'll pull that up then and put the other stock in here. I also have a few other bits and bobs. Okay, so in this row I have, you can't see here, one little bunny tail. It's a bunny tail grass. It did nothing last year and it's still stuck around. This is, I think, I'm not entirely sure. I've kind of looked at my plan from last year, but so many of my seeds got washed about in rainy season that things didn't grow where they were supposed to grow. So I'm not 100% sure. This might be a scabious, or it might be an orangium. And whatever this one isn't, that one is. So I have two wee things in here. This is where I'm going to have my zinnia and my cosmos though, so I'm not putting this in yet. I'm going to start those on, seed those at home pretty soon and start them on later, so these can keep growing and see if they're going to do anything. And then this bit where I am actually putting things in today, this is where my Snapdragon are all going. Right in the middle of the Snapdragon I have a Docostara, which didn't do anything last year, but again has really started to leaf up, and I think it's going to do stuff this year. So I'm going to have to adjust my plan a little bit and kind of work around these things. It's so hot out here. Is my head going? I think my head's going red. I'm going to have to put my hat on. It's hot. I was worrying about I was wondering about my seedlings when I was hardening them off, about the wind and the cold, but I think I should have been more concerned about the intense sunlight here, because like I say, the back row gets a little bit of shading from these trees that are here, these beautiful plum blossoms that are actually in blossom now, give a little bit of shade to this back row, which is where my Snapdragons are going, but the stalk are going to be in full sun, as is the Calendula. You can do it, guys. Gambare. Let's place everything out, see where it's all going to go. So I'm going to start in this first row, which is actually the back row, with my Snapdragon. Now today I have three types of Snapdragon. I have my Potomac Orange, I have Monarch Series mix, and I have some Madam Butterfly mix as well. Originally I had room for 12 rows, and I had another 3 types of Snapdragon, and I was going to do 2 rows of each type, but these are my autumn sown Snapdragon and they're doing really, really well. And I have started my other Snapdragon, but the germination isn't going as well as I would have liked, and it's very, very slow. So I think these ones might actually be almost over by the time those ones are ready to go in, or those ones might just never get to the point. Like I said, the weather changes here so quickly, and Snapdragon don't like the heat overly much. They're a cool flower. And you know, we're kind of cold up until Golden Week, which is April, May time, and then after May, the summer weather just comes on so strong, and I'm talking like 40-degree heat by the time we're in the middle of summer. So this is the thing about the difference between your USDA zone and your climate. They're two very, very different things. So technically my sister in Scotland is only a couple, I think she's zone 7B or 8A, and I'm zone 9B, and it doesn't sound like that big of a difference, and it's because of the winters. She's in a part of Scotland that doesn't get a lot of snow. It doesn't, it gets cold, but it's not super cold. It's not up in the Highlands. And that's what your USDA zone measures. It's how cold your winters get, not how hot your summers get. It's not about how much rain you get or how much sunlight or how many hours of sunlight you get. It's purely based on what your winter weather is like. So don't be confused by thinking, oh, well, if they can grow it in zone 9B and I'm in zone 9B, then it's going to be the same. It's not. It's really dependent upon your climate. And the climate here is hot and humid during the summer and cool but dry during the winter. So, and it really, really changes very, very quickly. So I think maybe my other Snapdragon aren't going to get much of a chance. And moving on in other, for next year and the years after that, I'm going to do all of my Snapdragon as autumn sown Snapdragons, so that I know that I'm going to have things to put in the ground when we get to this stage. But if you watched my video about my Snapdragon where I was propagating them, you'll know that I pinched out. So I have half of the Snapdragon that I haven't pinched, a half that I did pinch, and then with the ones that I pinched, I separated those and I propagated some in soil and I propagated some in water. And I really want to do this as a season-long experiment to see how that affects, how pinching affects the amount of flowers, the size of flowers, how quickly I get flowers, and how the different propagation methods affect the flowers, if they affect it at all. So what I'm going to do is grow a row of each. I'm going to do a row of not pinched, water propagated, soil propagated, and put them all together so that I can see how much difference, if any, I get from those different methods. And that is going to take me from here right down to where my sweet pea starts. So I'm going to have 4 rows of each Snapdragon, but they're all slightly different. So I'll go ahead and do that. Now I just have to remember which ones I pinched. Okay, for these I am planting them at 20 centimeter intervals. I'm going to dig a trench just for ease. I'm going to put a little bit of rotted cow manure down in the bottom of the trench, and then fill it up and tag it so that I know which one is which. My tags do state whether they were water propagated or soil propagated, so I'll be able to keep track of that, but I'll try and do them all in the same order to make it a bit easier for myself. Let's go. I have to find where the rope line of my allotment actually is. Where am I allowed to start from? Look how red my face is. I'm properly getting sunburn out here. Why Scottish people should not live in hot countries. I do have my tape measure to make sure I'm doing this properly. This back row, my allotment isn't perfectly straight, so the back row is actually smaller at this end and gets wider as it goes down. And I should adjust my planting for that. But I don't think I'm gonna. I think I'm still just gonna put 4 in each row. These front ones will just be a bit close together. I did see something that said you can plant them 15 centimeters apart, which is what I have here. But these first ones are just gonna be a bit cozy. Oh wow, look, these are actually getting a bit root bound. So I'm glad I'm getting them in now. Look at that root system. This guy's already putting out so many little side shoots. They're ready to be in the ground. I still only have teeny tiny roots on them, hardly any. Oh, and I look at those in comparison. So many. Oh, so many roots. Oh, I think water might be the way to go. Plants in the ground. Yes. Yes. Only a million more to go. Right, next, let's go Monarch. going to leave the dockets a whole line and move one below. Okay, Snapdragon all in. Next, stock. Okay, so in this row I'm planning on having my stock, Aster and Rudbeckia. So they take up about a third each from a poppy anyway. So I was going to start to send them work back, but I'm not actually sure how much room I need to take up. So I'm going to start just a line right behind my poppy and do 2 rows from there. I got stuck in. I also have my status in this tree, which is starting to come on now that it's getting warmer. It's not ready to go in yet. So next, cornflower. Oh, these guys are getting root bound. Look at that root system though. Oh, here you go. Spread yourself out. Get more room. Oh. Cornflower in. Next, calendula. Okay, so my calendula has actually done really well here. I've got 2 types. I've got Snow Princess and Touch of Red. And I've grown these because I had the seed already, but I actually grew some of these last year. They didn't do very well because of their placement in the garden, and I didn't actually like them. I found them really sticky, and I've since been told that the stickiness is actually why a lot of people grow them, because they have medicinal purposes, and that's the kind of sticky stuff that you want. So I'm still not sure about these. I've grown them because I had the seed and I didn't want to waste it, but I'm not going to put in very many. I'm only going to put in 1 row of each and just give them a chance and see if I actually like them this year or not. Where's my plan? I don't know where I'm putting them. Ugh. In, and I am knackered. I think I am going to stop there for today. The troops have just arrived in time to help me water things, so I am going to give these a good soak in. Poor thing. Give everything a good drink, soak it in, and yes, that's us. We've finally started to fill up the garden. Just my gypsophilia, and I've got a few bulbs, ramosa, that I need to put in, but I might come down and do that later in the week. I'm starting to get sunburn and I really need a drink. So if you want to see how this goes over the season, what I get to grow and what I make with what I grow, then remember to hit the subscribe button below, and I will see you guys next week. Bye!